So Jolene, what are we talking about today?
Oh, well, we're talking about how it all began, Kelly, how it all began.
So this is really our story, right? This is how everything came to be, why this podcast exists, and what we want to do with it, right?
Yes, and I can't wait to get started and tell the world why we're here and what our plans are. So let's do this.
All right. Hi there, villagers. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jolene. And this is the Success Through Community podcast,
where we believe that solopreneur success really does take a village.
I see it really as the lifeline.
It's been essential in getting my business to where it is today.
We're talking with women just like you who know that the secret to their success is their community.
Have you found your village yet? So we're going to start talking about just kind of like how we met, right? Because in reality, like this is as close to face as we've ever come.
We haven't met.
Or not. Yeah. That's what happens when you meet during a pandemic and borders are closed and you live in different countries. So it kind of gets in the way of all that. Also, when we met, I didn't even live in Idaho, so I wasn't even as close to you. I was like real far away from you at the time.
Yeah, you were in California at the time.
Yeah, so it was definitely not happening then. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit. I mean, I know how we met, but like, why don't you start a little bit the story of how we met each other?
Ooh, a story. It's story time. Okay, so for me, here's my recollection. Let's do it that way.
Yeah, there we go. What you remember? Yeah, love
it. Well, I'm pretty sure it was in that Facebook group that we had both purchased a program to learn how to grow our Facebook group and grow our communities and, you know, all of that stuff, how to get people and grow those numbers and all of that stuff for our businesses. And I'm pretty sure I joined that group on the beta session. And if I recall correctly, you were in the second one, maybe the third, maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah, second or third. I wasn't the first. Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if I recall correctly, we became support buddies. So there was a group of like 5 or 6 of us where we were kind of jumping into each other's groups and being our support buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheerleaders. That's it. So yeah. And then we kind of veered off that awfully quick, didn't we?
Yeah. It's funny to me because I feel like, you know, you had your group of people that were in your program when you did it, and I had the people that were in mine, and I still connect somewhat with some of the people that were in mine. But you would think that like we would have connected stronger with the people who actually went through the program at the same time
with you. Yeah,
because we were meeting regularly and like, you know, interacting a lot. But I think it came down to like somehow we sensed the kindred spirit.
It was a connection thing, right? Because
yeah,
even when you meet everybody online, and you can't not meet somebody online nowadays, it doesn't matter. The world is so tiny.
Yeah.
You can still grasp there's going to be a connection, and there's either going to be one or there isn't. It's that simple. Either you're a cheerleader just going through the role of doing what you said you do and commenting on their stuff and supporting them and all of that, or you're doing it because you want to and you feel like this is something you want to be a part of. And really what it came down to is wanting to be a part of. And then that's where that connection came for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say, well, a couple of things that you said were funny to me, because you made the comment about how like you can't not meet people online these days, which is so true. And like I actually met my husband online in the time frame where it was like not a total stigma, but also not as common as it is now, right? It was like right in that in between where like you almost sort of didn't want to tell people that was how you met, but it wasn't like back in the day when people are like, oh my gosh, are you sure they're not a serial killer? Because you know, so we were in the in between time there. But what I find so interesting about it is that like he and I, when we met, and like obviously I dated people before, he dated people before, but when he and I met, it was like we met and we were in a relationship. It just like natural transgression. Whoa, that was a Freudian slip. Natural transition is what I meant to say, to just being a unit, to just being in that relationship. And while, yes, I remember that we were like cheerleading in each other's groups, and I remember your group in particular, what I don't remember is when we all of a sudden started Facebook messaging all day, every day. Like, it just kind of happened.
Me either. It just kind of happened.
Like, we never said like, hey, you want to be accountability buddies? Not until we were already doing it did we say like, hey, let's actually be an intentional accountability buddies.
I don't think we've ever even had that conversation of being intentional accountability buddies and being on top of each other until we started talking about the mastermind.
I think a little bit before that, because because we started having our little intentional weekly sessions where we were accountable to each other. Remember, we had that Trello board. On some level, we had that conversation. We had that DTR, as we used to call it, the define the relationship. No, we had the conversation where we were like, hey, let's be intentional about this and like help each other with certain goals and things like that. But like, we were already so far beyond the talking constantly when that happened. So I just don't know when that happened. It's just like,
it's just like, do you want to meet every week and chat and see where we're at? Yeah.
And it doesn't stop us from still like having a super long running Facebook message going
on. Like, even tonight, we're trying to find some of the conversation from this morning, and it's like, oh my God.
Scroll.
Keep going. I think I found it. No, that's not it. Keep going. And then, when we have those conversations, was it before we talked about this or after we talked about that? Or was it, we good thing, they don't charge for that kind of stuff anymore.
Oh my God.
Imagine the costs for texting if it was 25 cents a text.
Oh man.
God bless
the internet. Trouble. We would be in trouble. Yeah. Well, same thing when they used to charge for minutes on phones. You remember when you didn't have unlimited minutes? Holy cow. That was always like, that was when you played that game of like, why don't you call me?
Yeah.
You call me when you're ready.
When you're ready. I won't answer the phone, but I'll hang up. Just call, let it ring twice, hang up, and then I'll know you're out front. But,
Yeah, I only have 2 minutes left this month. So can you just, oh my gosh. I think we just dated ourselves a little bit there, but I don't really care. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that like relationship, friendship, biz bestie ship wise, it just kind of happened and I really don't remember.
It was a natural transgression.
It was a natural transgression. Shut up. No, but I mean, I think in a lot of ways, not in a lot of ways, in every way, that's the best. Like, I mean, you can be organic. Intentional about community, and you should be intentional about community. And there are some people that it's going to take a little more work than others because you don't naturally have that click. Mm-hmm. And that can still be really beneficial, right? Because they might bring some perspective to the table that's so different from yours that you absolutely need to hear.
And one of those things too, it's like when you mentioned you and Glenn, Sal and I, we took a lot longer for our relationship to grow into that. I mean, so those relationships where you actually have to work on them and slowly build it up and actually have those intentional conversations can still turn into magic, right? They don't have to always just happen organically. They can be worked on. So like, since we're talking about our hubbies here, Sal and he's actually, like, we've been together 30, what year is it? 32 years this year. Wow. And and one of the things is I hate saying this because it is going to date me, but I never wanted to be his girlfriend because he was my boyfriend's baby brother's best friend, right? So I was already dating somebody who had a little brother who hung out with my now husband. And so we were just in that same circle and we were just friends. And it eventually, he was dating my best friend. Like it's an ugly.
Wow.
Lots of geometry in this relationship.
Soap opera happening in there. Yeah. That's like the original 90210 going on right there.
And and we're still all really good friends. So it all awesome. Out. And you dated yourself with that one.
Yeah, I did.
But it's one of those things where it didn't just happen. We didn't meet each other and go, oh, we need to be together. You're the love of my life. We're going to be together forever. It didn't happen that way. We actually worked on a friendship and a relationship and intentionally discussed what would happen if it didn't work out. What's going to happen to our circle? What's going to happen to our group of friends, and how we're going to make it work. And, so when it comes to business, you can do the same thing, right? And that's one of the reasons why I think it's just like you and I are so polar opposites on so many things, including our husbands, apparently. But it's one of those things where it's okay.
Well, it's not just okay. It's
building that community.
Good. I think it's good. And it's funny to me because I think part of the difference there, I know you and Sal met when you were young. And so where you were coming from, each of you at that point in time was very different than when he and I met, because we were already we joke all the time, it's a good thing we didn't meet sooner because I wouldn't have liked him in his 20s. He was obnoxious, right? So let's get real. I would have thought he was hot, but he would have been obnoxious, right?
Yeah.
So by the time we met, though, and the way we met, we never had, and we talk about this all the time, we never had any of those I'm not sure if they think if they like me, or if it's because because that's how, when it happens in a natural, organic way, that is how it happens. Always, because you start out as friends, and then, but because the way that it happened for us, we came into the conversation being hey, I want to sit here and talk to you and figure out if I want to date you.
If I want to see you again.
It was a transaction, in that first moment, and so I think this just kind of shows both of those and how beneficial they are, because I feel to a certain extent, when you apply this to the business world and the accountability and community and all of that, I feel the best biz bestie or accountability buddy is the one that it happens naturally, it did for us.
Absolutely.
Whereas when you're in a situation like this, and I'm certainly not going to call us out for this at all, but when you're that good of friends too, sometimes you might get off topic in a conversation that is supposed to be about accountability. You might all of a sudden start talking about a million other things, right?
Like how you met your husband? Would that happen? No.
That's relevant to this conversation. No, but my point is a lot of our accountability sessions turned into gab fests. And that's really common when it's your friend, because it's hard sometimes to draw that line between friend and professionalism, right? Whereas when you're intentionally going into the relationship, for example, a mastermind, where you may have friends like that in the room, but the point is that transaction is there for a specific purpose. It draws that boundary in a way that we need, because so many of us, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, however you call yourself, we tend to have very similar personality types.
Absolutely.
And so we will tend to get chatty, So no, you never get, and neither do I ever. But I think that's what, it shows the need and the benefit of both sides of the coin there when it comes to business community. You need both. And I think it's super important.
I think you're spot on there. And because our weekly sessions, and if I recall, they started out very to the point and very well, very, very regimented, I guess.
Yes.
And we were on top of it, but then it eventually just turned into that gab fest. And that is kind of why we birthed the mastermind. I think we needed other people around us to kind of keep us on track, and us to kind of make sure that we stayed within the program, right? And didn't veer off. But sometimes even the mastermind sessions tend to turn into therapy sessions and gab fests. But for the most point, we always wrap it up and bring it right back into where we need to go. And I think that's part of the best part of having that kind of a community and that business bestie, and being able to open it up to others, is to be able to, follow through with your intentions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes, the mastermind does sometimes get a little off the intended topic, but I think it typically still goes down a path of wow, that was a great conversation. It's not mindless fluff conversation. It's just not what we were supposed to be talking about. You know what I mean? And that's the difference, is like when it was just you and me, a lot of times we were just talking about all kinds of random stuff, not really related, which was fun, but different than like when we get off topic in the mastermind, I feel, because that's still relevant and related. It's just not where we thought we were going to go with it.
It doesn't turn as much into therapy as it does, actually with its intention. Right.
Right.
And that's, like I said, I think that's basically one of the reasons why we decided to start doing a mastermind, is because our weekly meetings together, as much as we'd be like, hey, what did you get done this week? It would turn into, well, I got this done and I didn't get that done because 30 minutes of because, right?
Right.
And even if that because wasn't an excuse, it was a conversation piece. And then we keep going. So,
yeah. No, true. And I think, we've gotten better at that. We certainly were not as good at that early on. We have definitely gotten better at that. As a group, we've gotten better at that. For sure.
Process, for sure. I mean, it's hard to jump into anything new. I've been a part of quite a few masterminds and had accountability buddies. And like we were talking about the group where we first met, I had a small group of accountability partners in there as well that were just us. And we didn't manage to bring it back. I just don't think there was as much of a business connection as there, was a personal connection. And then even that personal connection wasn't as strong to want me to make sure that, I don't let them down. I know that sounds really pretty crappy of me because I don't like letting people down at all. But when you and I are talking and you and I are planning something out, and whether it's the mastermind or, talking about starting the podcast or just having our weekly sessions, I would sit down before all of this started and say to my husband, I need to get this done because I'm meeting Kelly this week and I don't want her to know I didn't do it. So I need to do it. Right? And it's one of those things where that's where that community comes in. That's where that connection really plays a part, because there are strangers on the internet that I do not care if I let down, because they do not care if I grow my business or not. Right. So technically I'm not letting them down. Right. But you see where I'm going with this?
No, I do. And I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think, what I thought of mastermind wise before we started ours was that it was a situation, like, I think I always kind of saw it as like a group coaching program that was called a mastermind, right?
Right.
Where it's like somebody is like teaching at you or telling you, oh, you should do this next, or, basically directing your business, which there are times when we feel we need that or we feel we want that. But in reality, like as an entrepreneur, we probably shouldn't rely on that so much, because that's, yes, feedback and, suggestions and guidance, but we should be pulling that from as many resources as possible, not listening to just the one person and go ahead and do this, unless it's a specific program about here's how you create XYZ, right? Like that's different. But this is like, we're talking broad strokes, like how I'm going to strategize and grow my business. We need to own what we decide to do in that. And it's very easy in certain settings to let somebody else just tell you what to do, and then one day wake up in a business that you don't even recognize, which I know has happened to me before. And I'm sure I can see on your face that's happened to you too.
Yeah.
So, I think I always kind of thought of masterminds that way. And I think that's why I love what we're doing in our mastermind, because yes, there are certain topics where certain people in the group are kind of more the subject matter expert and are able to, kind of give their experience or their recommendations or suggestions or whatever. But there's never an expectation that what anybody says in the room is meant to be followed by somebody else in the room.
Right. Yeah.
If you choose to, or if you hear it and you're like, oh yeah, that totally resonates. Like that's clarifying what I've been trying to clarify in my brain for the last however long. And I'm totally going to go and run with that. And that's what I love about it. What I feel like I didn't think was out there. It probably is, but I hadn't found it. Yeah.
I definitely think it is. None of the masterminds I had been a part of previously were like that. There was always a teaching. And the thing about what we do that I love is everyone, we go into the group every Monday when we meet, we are equals. No one's better than anyone else. Yes, this person is an expert on this, which is our topic for conversation today. So they might have more to say, more experience, more knowledge base, but they're not teaching, they're discussing. And I love that it's always an open-ended conversation, whether it's about, email marketing, visibility, or, just, picking the right pin for Pinterest. Like we could choose so many different topics.
Yeah.
And they tend to always be valuable because they're business related. And the fact that in our group that we have right now that I absolutely love, a lot of it is we are all so different. We're all equal when we walk into that room, whether we've been in business 20 years or 2, and we all have different types of businesses, and the coaches have different ways of coaching, and the product people have different products and different ways of creating them and putting them out there, yet we're all the same in that room, right? Yeah. And to me, that is just, it's one hive mind. And that's the concept that I love. And that's the concept I wanted to go into, is that we had the hive mind, that we all are there for one intention, to save the queen, which, no, I'm kidding. The one intention of growing a business, right?
Yeah.
Everybody in our group is just as invested in growing each other's business as we are our own, without having to dole out financially, without having to invest our more time than we are capable of, but by sharing our knowledge and our experience and our woes, our celebrations. That's what makes that group, for me, so amazing, and why I am so proud to be a part of that community, and so proud that it is growing. And hopefully there's going to be so many more that are like that, because I think every woman in business needs to be a part of something like this. Whether it's one of ours or somebody else's, there needs to be this out there for everybody.
Well, and that's like such a great segue into the next thing we wanted to talk about, actually, which is how come there's a podcast now, how the podcast came to be. And I think, there's a lot of reasons that the podcast came to be. And I think there's a lot of different aspects of what the podcast is hopefully going to be and what we plan for it to be. But I think this was a big part of it to me, because, we do have these great spirited discussions with the group on a regular basis, and so many different perspectives are brought into it. And I do think that so many of those topics would be beneficial listening to the discussion, even if you weren't involved in the discussion.
That's correct. Yeah.
There's obviously another layer of it when you are involved in the discussion, because then you can have that back and forth about it. But just to kind of be a fly on the wall in some of those conversations and, benefit from all of these different perspectives and take, pick and choose the things that you hear to create your own plan for whatever that is. Right. And I think that's kind of, for me, like what initially made me think, okay, like I personally have been fighting the idea of starting a podcast for a long time, because I didn't want to, not like a podcast with you, but just myself as a business owner starting a podcast, because I didn't want to just jump on another bandwagon that was going to suck all the time out of me. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we all do that, and we do it for visibility or for, whatever reasons. And nothing ever felt natural to me, right? I always felt like, okay, well, I could start a podcast, but then what am I going to talk about? Okay, so now I got to start and stop and think and plan out like what I can talk about that's going to be interesting enough for this amount of time and blah, blah, blah. And when you and I started talking about doing this, it's like the concepts of the podcast just appeared.
Yeah, there was no hard thinking, right?
No.
So for me, I toyed with the idea of a podcast. And as you know, I actually made the attempt of creating one for myself, for my company. And that didn't go very far. And what it came down to is when I was listening and editing and going back to it all, it was just me lecturing, and I'm not comfortable with that. If I'm standing in front of if I'm standing in front of people and talking about a specific topic, that's a talk. And there's always open-ended conversation in these events type thing at the end. Whereas with the podcast, for me, it was just me lecturing, and I was not comfortable with that. I would rather just turn my podcast into me reading a book, because there seems to be a lot more value in that in my mind. I know some people found value with what I had to say, but to me, I didn't think it was valuable. So it withered away. And like you said, it was hard to come up with ideas and suggestions and topics. And, I didn't want to regurgitate what was already out there, because what I do and in my business, it is a saturated market, and that's okay. But I didn't want to just be another podcast in the pond.
Right,
so
right.
I had to find other ways to try and grow my business. And I don't want to say that kind of got put on the back burner, or it was tabled when you and I started, moving in the direction we have been moving in, but it just felt right. And the direction that we are going with Success Through Community and It Takes a Village, it feels right for my company too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those values all just came together and fell into place. Now, of course, this podcast, we have big dreams, and we have a wide variety of things we want to do with it. And again, we didn't have to think about it. It was just a conversation going, what do you think of this? Ooh, I like that. Let's do this too, right? So
now we have to figure out how to fit it all in without it just looking like a big old patchwork quilt of mess.
I like quilts.
I like quilts too, but there are done well quilts, and then there's like, I'm just gonna throw it all together. And I think, one of the things that we've sort of talked about this in passing, not like officially. So I guess maybe I'll cut this out if we decide to do something different.
We'll find out.
But I mean, the way I kind of see it, like, we've already structured the mastermind around seasons in business, right? Around the quarters in business, which is a way to approach businesses without it being super overwhelming of, I have to do all of this year. It's like, no, what do I need to focus on this quarter, right? And I think the same kind of concept in my mind works here, right? Whereas we have, our year is our season, but we have maybe 4 series. I don't know if that's the appropriate plural series, 4 series within, shush, within there, right? So
hard.
They are hard. It's late. Okay. And I worked all day. So, but we have what we're doing right now, which is what has been launched at this moment with this very episode, which is our series talking to other businesswomen and hearing how community has impacted them and their journey as a solopreneur, right? And that is one series within the season. But I could absolutely see us having, a series within the season where we bring in some discussions from the mastermind and, let other people hear, obviously with the express written consent of those in the discussion, but bring those in, right? And then maybe also have a series where it's just you and me talking like we do about different topics and actually recording it instead of, just having these brilliant conversations that no one else ever gets to hear. I think there's place for all of that.
I agree.
Within structure. Now we just have to name all of those different things.
But I think we want to also make sure that we don't overdo it, so that we don't stress ourselves out. And because you're doing all the editing, and honest to God, Kelly, I think like over the past couple of weeks, you've been the glue holding everything together. And I'm just like, okay, I'm there.
Okay, but look,
up, right?
But seasons, we have seasons. There are other aspects where you're doing all the everything. All of our graphics are all you. They wouldn't look.
I get there's balance. There's give and
total
take,
balance.
but there's also good old Catholic guilt. So let me have it.
No, I will not. I will not.
With the podcast and our plans for that, I think I'm very, very excited on the direction we're taking. So I think it's going to be really nice, because we're going to be breaking it up for our listeners, and since you're listening to this today, it's hey, happy launch day. Maybe. We haven't decided that yet. We're still figuring it out, so bear with us. But
Messy
Kelly-
action.
Kelly, help me here. We're going to be talking about plans for the podcast. See, this is where I start to fumble because it's intimidating and it's scary because there's such big dreams, and it's one of those things where you have to either go for it or you're not going to get anywhere. So we're going to go for it. And what we're going to go for is interviewing amazing women and having great conversations with women on how community has helped them grow their business and how it brought them to where they are and helped them grow. So that's exciting. We've already recorded a couple of interviews, and I love the stories. I love listening to all these other people talk about where they came from and how communities help them grow. So that's one of the big exciting things that I'm looking forward to. Another thing I'm looking forward to is how we're going to just have these community conversations where we're talking to women in the community, and not about community as much, but we're going to be bringing the community to our listeners, right? So we're going to bring the community to the podcast, and it's going to be our listeners that we're going to have on here having conversations with. It's going to be conversations with people we have interviews with, and even some of our local business owners and a little bit of everybody. So it's the purpose of the podcast is community, and so that we can bring what we do and what we love about our community out into the world. And that's how we're going to do it, right? So we'll have these seasons and sessions and series. We have yet to determine terminology.
Yes.
Words are hard on that. So that's going to be fun. And then, we talked a little bit about having a few quickie episodes where Kelly comes on and she talks about her expertise and her business a little bit, Tech Savvy Academy. And so there'll be Tech Tuesdays, maybe, if that's something that our listeners are interested in. So if you are, definitely let us know. Put it in the comments, reach out to us through the website. Check out the show notes on how to do that, because we want to hear from you, because you are our community and we are wanting to grow this with you. So if you have ideas on how we can bring the community, if you have a community that you want to introduce to us, definitely reach out to us, because that's what it's all about, right? That's our plan. Big dreams, big goals to turn this tiny little podcast of two girls who met on the internet, who live in different countries, to expand to the world the joy and the community that we have created and built together. And everybody needs a piece of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Nicely done. Yes, I agree. No, and I think just the fun of it, because I think it's so easy as business owners when we connect with other business owners just to be so serious all the time. Like
Yes.
there's no balance between, we're just talking and chatting and we're getting down to business. Like you can do them at the same time.
Right.
I laugh more during our mastermind sessions than like any other time of the day. And yet we still get so much accomplished in those conversations. So,
Absolutely.
bringing that aspect of it as well, I think is a big goal of mine.
And I think you're right, because when we talk about networking, and everybody out there, every guru, every coach, every business owner says networking is a part of doing business. Get out there and network. And a lot of us tend to go out there and we put on the serious face. We put on the grown-up face. We're networking with all these strangers. We want them to take us seriously. There's no authenticity in that other than the fear that we are harboring. So I think that's one of the good things that we're going to be bringing out there, is we're going to try and reduce that fear. So we can laugh. We can authentically go out there and be who we are, because that is our magic, right? That is our secret sauce as business owners, is that authenticity.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that this podcast is going to help so many other women to learn to stop harboring that fear, to go out there, build their own community, be their true authentic selves, and grow their own company and business to the dreams and desires that they are, hoping to reach. And they can accomplish the incredible if they just give it a go. And I think I'm so excited that we are going to be a part of that. Even if it's for one person, I'm so excited that we are going to be part of that.
Even if we never know, because it's a listener who never reaches out.
Yeah.
Like knowing that that's even possible, that somebody listening to this right now might run with this idea, listening to us and never, ever tell us, which I hope they do tell us because I want to know. But if they don't, like, it's still so exciting to know that we can have that kind of impact without even ever knowing it. And I kind of love that.
That's part of it, making an impact, changing the world, and
having fun doing it.
Yeah, having a blast, right?
Exactly.
And bonus part, I'm going to be sober for the majority of it. I'm not promising 100%, but the best part is doing this while not having to drink wine or have a few tequila shots to make a couple of friends. That is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, because so many of the networking events are like based on that, aren't they? I mean, it's like, you know, you're supposed to be being professional, and not that look, I have nothing against drinking alcohol. Obviously, I do it sometimes. You do it sometimes. But it should not be a requirement to show up and be yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think in some ways we start to condition ourselves that way. Like, oh, I need my liquid courage, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I'm super proud of you because anyone who's, obviously this is the first episode of this, but anyone who's been around for even a minute knows that you don't love being on camera.
No.
You do it great, but you do
community.
Yes, you're doing it for the community. But I mean, you're drinking tea, you know? I'm pretty sure it's tea. I have no proof that it's tea, but I'm pretty sure it's tea. But I mean, you're at a point now where like you don't feel any need, and you shouldn't feel any need to like have to hype yourself up. And I think that is accentuated by the fact that like we're just two friends talking. We're just talking about something we're passionate about. And we all can do that. We all do it all the time. And in reality, that's what business networking should be.
Exactly.
It's two new friends sitting and talking about what they're passionate about.
Exactly. It's not being out to impress. Ooh, sorry. I made noise with my book. It's not going
Are we sure it's tea? Because I'm not sold anymore that it's tea.
Tonight it's tea, I promise. You know what? I'll let you know. You will know. You will know because I will have my wine glass proudly going.
Yeah, I know you do.
I lost my train of thought there, which is pretty common. But yeah, networking, it's not about going out and impressing. That's what a sales pitch is, right? It's about going out and finding people who can support you in your business and going out and supporting others in their business. And that is our goal. That's for sure our goal, because we think that we feel that there needs to be more women in business. There needs to be more confidence, and there needs to be less women giving it a try and then just fizzing away and you know, letting that fear that they've harbored take over and win for them, and just going back to the daily grind and never really accomplishing their dreams. There's too much of that going around. So
there's also too much of the not women actually supporting, like truly genuinely supporting other women.
Yeah. That's a whole other podcast episode.
I know it is.
You know, that for sure. That's
put a pin in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. So that's what we're here to do. And that's part of our future plans for the Success Through Community podcast, because our goal is the more successful, you know, our listeners are, the more successful we are. And so, yeah, as Kelly said, whether you reach out and let us know or not, we are going to, you know, do our best to make sure you can go out there and do yours.
Right? Oh, that was a good soundbite.
You're welcome.
I'll be stealing that for later. Thanks so much for joining us this week on the Success Through Community podcast,
where our goal is to support female solopreneurs through community.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you check out the show notes for links, transcripts, and so much more.
And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast.
Ooh, and don't forget to mention us to your community.
And if you can't wait for the next episode, be sure to join us on Patreon,
where our community is made possible by listeners like you. So thank you so much for your support.
Until next time.